Welcome to the first turn. I'm Hyena.
I'm Llama.
And today we've got some stuff to talk about. A little bit of Warhammer stuff, a little bit of Adepticon talk, a little bit of
coming.
We're like maybe more.
Yeah.
So pretty exciting. I'm a little irritated. Adepticon coming up.
Irritated?
I have a little bit because I haven't gotten my rules packs for the events that I'm going to be playing in.
Right.
So they haven't told me exactly how the events, because they're narrative, and so they've got very specific, usually very specific army build instructions, and this is the pack you use to build your army of, and this is the things that are allowed and not allowed. And here it is. We're recording here on the 22nd. Adepticon's a month away.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten that info yet. And I'm like, well, I need to know so I can put my army together and get it painted. And
not only that, but now that you mention it, I don't think anyone who did mail badges by mail have gotten them yet.
Yeah.
And
so again, it's we're
less
running
than
out of time
5
here.
weeks. We're 4 weeks and a couple days out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Little. That's my irritation. Is it's it's getting too close and it's getting stressful because these things that I need to prepare are out of my control. You know, and it's there's no way I can speed this up.
Do we know if the people playing the bigger tournaments, like the champs and stuff, do we know if they've gotten their packets?
I'm not sure. I assume because a lot of stuff is ITC kind of based rules now, that it's pretty stock standard stuff, and there might be small variations for map layouts and stuff for your pack that you can know ahead of time, but there's not Adepticon specific rules anymore, I don't think.
No.
They're used to.
And I know Warhammer TV even runs, they do feature matches and stuff there. They run it, even though it's not a Games Workshop owned event, they still treat it like it is. So yeah, you're right. They don't do Adepticon only rules anymore. Which now that it doesn't matter anymore, but I think we can say from experience, not only our own experience, but those of people we know, when Adepticon was doing their own tournament packets, those were the worst. They for the big championship,
they were always so skewed. They were so
for if you're talking narrative or fun events or whatever, then it's whatever. But when it was for the big match play championship level events, the rules were always very skewed. They had not moved into the ITC style of tournament packet or even the General's Handbook chapter approved style tournament. They were still writing their own tournament rules that were quite dated. I mean, they were still designed for a game from several editions ago. They were still doing an all or nothing as the scoring system. You basically wanted to 30-0 people. And then we found out they would do changes at the last minute. These tournament packets 60 days out. And so these players could start practicing for the event. And then there was an announcement to the players the day before the champs started that no, we're using a different tournament packet. So you had all these players who prepped for weeks with one set of rules only to find out those were not the rules that were going to be used. But then there was this tiny smattering of players who, conspiracy theories abound, knew the judges and were friends with them and were teammates with them, who all of a sudden had lists that looked very weird, but that really fit these surprise day before rules. It's and you had to submit your list way before that. So
right.
It's
that was the thing, is it's the lists were in, and then you get the new packet, and you're oh, now it makes sense why these weird lists that were submitted last week were so weird. Because with a lot of those apps, you get to look through and see, once everyone's locked in, basically everyone submitted their lists, then you can do a little bit of research. You can go and look and see what lists have already been other lists have been submitted,
prepared for, yeah.
And so it's oh, that's interesting. Why is this list so much different than what the meta would dictate? Why is it so different than everyone else? And then you see the list or the new packet drop here, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And you had a couple of years where that happened, where it was also why are there these 3 well-known players playing a strange Tyranid list with a bunch of solo lictors when those weren't good at the time? And then it was oh, one of the rounds of the tournament, or 2 of the rounds, had these little snag an objective on a deep strike, and you could just tag it and go, or snag it on the last turn. And so that list all of a sudden was scoring real high, even though they couldn't kill anything. And you saw that in a number of ways. It was lists showing up that were just so weird, but they were with prominent players. And then the tournament packet dropped, and it was like, oh, these guys clearly got to practice with this packet. No one else did.
Well, and then it was easy to see those lists in action too, because when you'd look at the randomly generated brackets for matching, they were all in a different like section of the 16, one of 16 different sections. And so when they all got to the last round, none of them had faced each other because none of them were in the same, like it was anime fight tournament style random number draws, right? Like none of the main characters can fight each other outside of quarterfinals, right? Like they all make it to top 8 and then they get to start playing against each other. It was that every year, and it's like that's not a coincidence.
It was just like cheesy tournament movies, or like it was like, that's pretty neat that all of the guys from team whatever didn't have to play each other until they were in the last 8.
Even though they were all undefeated, they should have been matching up against each other. For some reason that they were paring down, and they were playing against lists that they shouldn't have been playing against. Like it was a little suspect. Little sus, as the kids say.
I don't know what it was like at any other big event. We saw this kind of thing happening at Adepticon, but Adepticon also held on to their own rules for a long time. Anyway, that's in the past. Now they use the same tournament packets everybody else does. But I had just wondered if they had gotten them for those events, since you still haven't seen yours yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, I haven't signed up for any of the big ones, so I'm really not sure. The ones I've signed up for are kind of smaller gaming clubs are running them. So, I assume those people have other things they're doing, obviously. And last year, the one event that I signed up for, I got the packet basically. It would be, it'd have to be within, like in the next week. So it was around the 24th, I think, is when I got it last year. And so that's coming up. I expect to get it here the next week or so. And then I can actually lock down what I want to play and write my story for my warband and all that, because that's part of it. That's part of this narrative thing, is I have to do a lot of homework to make it a narrative thing. So takes time. I need I'm not good about getting things done ahead of time when it comes to the tournaments and stuff, because I tinker a lot, and so every time it comes down to the last week or so and I'm still painting.
I think you're probably not alone in that bucket. Like, there's some people who have had stuff painted, and so that's just what they will play forever, even if the meta changes or even if the thing they're doing is different. They'll still, well, these guys are painted, I'll just play them.
Mm-hmm.
Others are like that. They decide what they want to play, and now they're scrambling to get it done at the last.
Well, and usually mine is such a weird like fluffy list too, that it's like, well, there's no way I would have had all these painted ahead of time, because it's a nonsense list. Last year I played full Dark Oath, and Dark Oath hadn't been out for very long, and it was like, well, now I got to paint 70 barbarians. I didn't have a list put together that played that many Dark Oath. Like, why would I? That's absurd. They weren't that good. But this was my full list, so it's like, well, shit, I got to get it all done. But we do have moving on a little bit. We do have some stuff coming out that's been teased previously. It's now in pre-order. So we were talking about Age of Sigmar last week, and how they kind of paying off some of these previews relatively quickly. We got Sylvaneth kind of dropped in the middle to shake things up, which we were not expecting. Did we get a date on that book? Did they say when that was coming out?
No, it's interesting so it's weird, is I don't recall something for them being leaked, like in terms of images. Usually that's when GW jumps the gun on Warhammer community site and says, oh, by the way, this is coming. They did that with Angron, right? They did it with Nightbringer. But with this, there wasn't a leak. This Grove Guardian lady wasn't leaked. We had heard rumors of stuff coming for Sylvaneth down the road, but nothing solid. They weren't on the roadmap. We didn't really have a roadmap beyond Ossiarch Bone Reapers. And then it was like, they show us the book and this character on Valentine's Day. But it doesn't have a date. It just says they're coming later this year. Well, obviously that can be anything. I figure if they're showing us the book, it can't be that far away. I also wonder, I feel like showing her off and then doing that pseudo perfume commercial was like a gimmick they had planned for Valentine's Day. But I almost wonder if they're dropping this in because something else had to move. And we know that probably has to happen, but it's hard. What I do know is, like, you have to imagine Cathay from the old world, for example, ate up a lot of production space because they were.
And then we've got that new whole sect of Cathay coming out now soon.
That's what I mean.
Which
is
is like all that, like 6, 7 new units.
When their army launched, they got a bunch of kits, and it was a full army launch pretty much. And now they're expanding the army. They're almost doubling the size already. So it was maybe Lumineth or someone went through something similar like that back in the day, where they came out with a big wave of models, and then like 6 months later, another big wave of models. And so that has to eat up a ton of production. Whether that had anything to do with it, I don't know. They're gearing up for 11th edition 40K. It could be something had to be bumped, or they're expanding their production facilities, or still attempting to do that. And so they just were like, well, what do we have? Well, this character and this book for Sylvaneth are ready. Let's just show it here, but not put a date on it. I don't know. That was a weird one, because we had heard rumors that Sylvaneth were going to get more than that. That the Kurnothi side, those like beast people that are like part deer, part human or whatever, or part elf, they were going to be expanded upon, because they've gotten a couple of units in other game systems already. And so that could still happen. It just might not be alongside the book. And when people question it, when I've seen people say, well, this is their update for the edition, don't expect anything. It's like, well, wait a minute, though. We've had a very recent precedent of GW releasing outside of a specific window for an army, and they use something like a narrative event to justify releasing more. So it could be Sylvaneth does have more coming. Maybe it won't be till next edition, but maybe if there's an end of 4th edition series of narrative events like there is for 40K 10th, Sylvaneth will get something extra there.
Well, I do think it's interesting. The one interesting piece of information they did give in that article was kind of just when it comes to numbers, right? It's very specific. It's like you don't round, you don't fudge, whatever. They said specifically there will be in this book an updated war scroll for all 25 entries in the army list.
Yeah.
Like, well, what do they define as an army list? Do they include the endless spells? Do they include the trees, like the terrain? Is that a war scroll in the army list?
Right.
Because without those 4 things, and then this Grove Keeper this is the 25 entry if you include those other 4 things. Nothing from Legends or anything like that. But I'm wondering if it's like, well, are they going to start rolling in some of that Kurnothi stuff that was in a different form? Right? Are they going to bring that over in and make a new entry for it? So maybe it won't be a named version, but it'll be like the 3 deer people from the latest Underworld war bands will be a generic version, right? They had the Twist Wield are now kind of in there.
Yep.
Which was the Warcry war band that I don't recall if that was Legends and they were brought them in recently or not. I think they were one of the ones that they actually just included when they first came out. But like I said, with this Grove Tender, if you include the endless spells and the terrain, that's 25.
Yeah.
So maybe they are including those kinds of things as part of the army. And if that's the case, there's nothing else new in the army besides
there might not be, no.
At least for now.
Yeah, and it makes me think a little bit like because we had speculated, and then I've got some thoughts about other things coming up soon. Quite a bit happened from the Black Library app, so I remember when the Goblin Wolf Riders came out as a Warcry warband or an Underworlds warband, one of the two.
Yeah, they were Underworlds.
Yeah.
Oh God, second season, I think. Yeah.
And it paid off eventually in AoS 4 when Gloomspite gets this great big release box with a whole bunch of Wolf Riders and Chariots. And so it could be something like that's coming. It's just not ready yet. And maybe something else had to move. So they're just giving Sylvaneth this for now. Kind of a bummer. But if it's true that they are going to expand that line eventually, I could see something like that where a whole box that comes out that's like, here's a bunch of these Satyr, Centaur, spirits. Because that would be a really cool way to expand it. And we're seeing more and more of that like internal faction fracturing that we've talked about, where it's not everybody within a faction is all hunky-dory together. And so that could be another direction to take them even, because someone's got ambitions different than Alariel or what have you. So I don't know, that'd be really neat to to see them expand in that direction.
And I'd rather them like release it now and then give them more attention later in a bigger kind of release.
Yeah.
Than like delay this and include it all together, I think. You know, like,
and it's funny because like we've talked about, they don't necessarily have to do it when the army updates. Like now it seems like they're willing to just pick any other opportune time to give people's faction stuff. So it's almost like every faction gets touched more than once in every edition now. And that's kind of neat because it keeps you interested for those 3 years. I mean, we just saw like AdMech for 40K getting a random new Archmagos Terminus or whoever, and some Skitarii stuff. And it's like, that was really out of nowhere. I don't think we saw any of that.
And I'm wondering if that came about because they are ramping up sort of the story in 40K with the Maelstrom and the Eye of Terror and all that. Maybe this is sprinkling in some, some love for every faction because they're involved in some way in this story, right? Like
what was
there was.
Go ahead.
There was something to do with the Blackstone pillars and stuff disrupting, different aspects of the tears in space, and this Archmagos is supposed to be from the Cadian sector, I think, and so like maybe there's something to do with more Xenos technology that the Archmagos are like investigating and messing around with, trying to like re-implement to close rifts in space and stuff. Like I don't know.
We know Call's trying to do that, and we know a lot of other Archmagos don't agree with what Call's doing. So like, it's interesting again that they can create the subdivide. Here's another Archmagos who's very powerful, but does a very different thing, has a very different cult of followers than what Call's doing.
I did think it was very interesting design-wise. This Archmagos is a female, I believe. Is like supposed to be. There's some design elements of her that are like, oh, that's very feminine. Like
Thulia Gould is who it is. Yeah, and it's funny is I think Thulia Gould's actually been in some of the books because there's a number of these Archmagos, however we want to pronounce that. Each one representing different Forge Worlds. Each one has their own cult of followers. Each one, but they also have like a committee where they talk. But it's funny is like, sort of like you think of like the Roman Senate, right? In ancient Rome, and you had like representatives of the plebeian class, like the citizens, and you had representatives of the nobility class, and they would come to the floor and make very dramatic speeches about what they want and try to get the people on their side, and then they'd have a vote and they'd try to get what they want. They kind of have the same goal, but they want their way to be the way that gets there. And again, in reading some of Call's books now, I'm almost through with Genefather. It's interesting. It's like these other Archmagos, like some agree with him and some don't, and they will do this where they have these, where they convene and they're in front of a whole bunch of tech priests and servitors and stuff, and they make their arguments. And it's funny because they'll do it in like 3 languages. They'll do it in like Imperial Gothic, they'll do it in Binaric, and they'll do it in whatever their Mechanicum code is. And it'll sound like they're grandstanding and talking and making their case for hours, but then the end of the chapter, it'll be like this whole conversation took like 12.2 seconds or whatever, because they're speaking digitally to each other. But anyway, so this is someone who I think is not aligned with Call at all. So it's interesting again that they're making that sort of Eternus Abraxia type sub-faction within the Mechanicum, because they have very different goals.
Well, I do think like from a design point, she's very interesting because she's very similar to Call.
Yeah,
kind of that centaur-y sort of like mechanical centaur sort of body. Yep. Someone had pointed out that it's interesting that Call has like one of his hands is carrying just like a little set of keys.
Yeah.
Well, she's just carrying a box that has keyholes in it.
That's funny. Yeah.
Which is like, what is that the box the keys are for? Because we've always wondered, like, why is he just holding a set of keys? Like, what is that? Like, what does that go to? Why is he like? Why are they so important that they had to model them in one of his hands? He's grasping them, like she's got the box that maybe the puzzle box that the keys are for,
and they don't want to share with each other. Like that's just
right. Exactly.
It's funny is they salivate almost, or I guess the Mechanicum equivalent when one of them has tech, and that's like how they bargain. They'll be like, well, I have the secrets to insert ancient tech, and I can share it with you all. And they're like, oh, that's like better than treasure to them. They're like, oh, please, we'll do anything for that. but some of them like this will come to disagreement and they will even try to foil one another. So I don't know. That was a really cool like mid drop for them. I think you're right. I think it's helping ramp up towards their campaign stuff. And that might even be, again, what we see them do. Because towards the end of Age of Sigmar 3.0, a bunch of factions got touched out of nowhere, out of sequence again, like just like this. So I think that that's okay to think that if your book's just coming with a pity hero now, that doesn't mean that they won't get more within a couple of years. So I don't know. We don't know exactly what's after Sylvaneth. We've got loads of rumors now as far as Age of Sigmar. But
I did see another rumor was kind of like, there are some well-known rumor mongers out there who are pretty accurate. I mean, we've a lot of some of the rumors that we've given have been sourced from them, right?
Yep.
And like, I think they're having a lot of fun with it because I think they maybe are dead on with a few of these coming up, and so like they're intentionally being very cryptic and like teasing the community because the community, I think, hangs on their words, a little bit.
Yeah.
And so they really want to mess, like kind of mess around with the community and really keep them excited. But one of the most recent kind of teasers was a little cryptic. They said something like, the cog forts are coming. They're almost here. And then it's like, well, which are you going to choose? And it's like really open-ended, really cryptic. Well, you're going to choose flame or cannon? Are you going to choose death or shadow? Kraken or the enlightened? It's like, what does any of that mean? Like what? Like,
and
to me,
some of them will do the very cryptic things like that, like they're having fun. And then the other one who's well known won't post for weeks or weeks or weeks. And then when they come in, they'll give this dead accurate bit of information that doesn't disprove the cryptic thing.
Right.
But yeah. So I do think sometimes they're having fun with the crowd now that they kind of know they've got them.
But I do think it's interesting, like bringing that kind of thing up, those kind of like cryptic things. It's like it relates to something in some way, right? And so it's like when I think about Age of Sigmar and I think of those kind of aspects that they're talking about, choosing one or the other. I mean, there's always been kind of like faith and fury in like the Empire and in the Free Guild and whatever the humans. There's always like a religious kind of sect. And then there's like the technology, like here's my guns and my axes, the cannon side. But then there's also like the internal fire, the love and the whatever of Sigmar inside, like the kind of the faith and zealotry side of things. That could be the flame that they're talking about compared to the cannon, whatever. Death and shadow are two aspects of magic, right? Like those are two of the realm of death and realm of shadow, which we have very little touched on at this point. Yeah. Like if you look at the updated, like what used to be called the Collegiate Arcana, the battle wizards from the old world, they had all these different colleges of magic, one representing each of the different winds. We've gotten, I think, 5 of the different aspects of magic updated for Age of Sigmar at this point, especially with like the new I forget his name. The new like named wizard that came in the board game. He's a Jade wizard. Right? Right. That's 100% just an updated Jade wizard right there.
Yeah.
There was a wizard that came in the Cursed City box. She was very much a wizard of heaven. The lady with like the draping kind of headdress with the curtains kind of behind her. And so it's like they've kind of given us an updated battle wizard for most of the winds of magic now. Death and shadow coming, are kind of like, well, I could see that maybe they're giving us new battle wizards. Maybe they're referring to specific characters that are coming in this this new box set. Like maybe the wizard that we get for season is a death wizard, and the Skaven are embodying shadow. Because they're going to be Eshin. So it's like I don't know. I think they're really hinting at something here and kind of playing with it, and it'll make a lot of sense once we finally get it. But it was like, you're not going to guess it based on this. You know what I mean? Like this is, once it's revealed, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I see what they were talking about. But you're never going to get there using this clue.
No, it's very well done. Honestly, it's frustrating, but very well done. One rumor I did see is that we're supposed to get the pre-order for Eye of Terror long enough before Adepticon that it should be available for sale at Adepticon.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
yeah, so like March,
so 2 weeks from now?
right? So like 2 weeks from now, we should see the pre-order announcement for Eye of Terror.
Okay.
That's the rumor, because they want there to be nothing left except for the announcement of Armageddon and then 11th edition.
Okay.
So we'll see if that holds up. Because they got to have something juicy for sale there, right? But
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
GW's booth always does fine anyway. But it's
For me, it's always like, well, what can I get here in person that I can't get at home? That I have to special order, that I have to like go search for. What do they have here that's like, I've
right.
always
So a lot of times it's a random like one-off Forge World thing, or just one that stores have had trouble keeping in stock, or an event exclusive. Like when they do those commemorative ones are always available at the booth. Can't always get them online. So that's kind of what we look for there. But if there's something new, that's also, people get the FOMO, they want to have it.
Yeah.
There's also but we've seen a ton of rumors. Like you saw a host of rumors about what the Eshin stuff's going to look like for Skaven. And you can talk about that, but then you also have a theory that it might have been intended for something else and it's been ported to Age of Sigmar.
I mean, my theory is always that, right? Like there's so many releases that we've gotten recently that look weird. They're odd numbers of units. They've got little markers and tokens in them that should be basically like, you are just a model that should have rules, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe not a whole unit of them, but you should have, rules of your own because you're big enough. Like when they include like a Griffhound in a unit of Stormcast, and then like the Griffhound just doesn't have rules, they're a token. Weird. It's like you should have had rules. Like what were you intended for that you got relegated to just being a token now?
Right.
I feel bad for you. I think some of this Eshin stuff that's coming out that's going to be supposedly in a spearhead box, right? Is what it is going to be now. It's going to be a 2-player spearhead, which I think is odd to begin with, but the spearhead is also like 100% new models.
Right.
It's going to be Clan Eshin versus like the Faith and Steel kind of expansion to Cities of Sigmar. That to me, if you look at like a gutter runner unit, the rumors say that they're going to be equipped with all kinds of different, implements, different kinds of tools and weapons. Warcry has units that have all kinds of mixed weapons because they've got different weapon loadouts that do different things and different cards for this specific loadout. I mean, I would not be surprised at all if Warcry was the original home for any of this Eshin stuff or any of this, Cities of Sigmar stuff that's coming out now, because like it's small, skirmishy, independent operating kind of units, kind of are designed for not just Warcry, but skirmish games in general.
Yeah,
so
we saw that even with like it was like the Maggotkin that were released in the Darkwater box as opposed to the Maggotkin proper release.
Right.
So, for example, the Pestigors are 2 different kits.
I believe it's 2 units of 4 because you make 2 of each. It's an 8-man unit. That's weird.
Right. And they had those Mire Kelpies that they decided were something else. And so there was also the Pox Wretches. And so both of them are like this weird number, and they have very specific equipment. And I would almost I don't think it's too far of a stretch to think they were probably going to be for Warcry.
Yeah.
And since they've scrapped that, it was like, well, what do we do with these? Well, it's funny is okay, so they put them in Darkwater, fine. They got this Worm Request box. It's successful. It's fun. But then the Pestigors they released for Maggotkin are a different kit. It's a box of 10.
Entirely different 10-man unit of models. If you add up the 7 guys that are Pox Wretches, which is half of it, right? Each of these sprues comes with like 7 models plus 3 Mire Kelpies, and then you've got a 4-man unit of Pestigors, right? Call it that. That's like 14 models, right? 7, 4, and 3. That could have absolutely been just a Warcry warband.
Yep.
You build your Warcry warband out of this, kind of. It's just weird. It's like that's a weird thing to have done. Then you get double that. Like that was a Warcry warband. I'm calling it. You know what I mean? Like, and then you repurposed it because Warcry, while I don't think was unsuccessful, was a project they chose not to pursue further. I think maybe because they did too many of these giant box sets that included all this terrain and stuff when they did that last season of Warcry, the Gyrin one.
Yeah.
No, the Realm of Beasts, the Gur one. There was 6 2-player starter boxes that all had terrain. They were all $250 each. And it's like, this was too much for this. Like, get one big terrain box for the season, release your little war bands. Like, why did they go so hard into Warcry for that one season? Like, it was wild.
One of the attractive or accessible parts of games like that are supposed to be, I can just buy this one box warband and play. And like that, where it was like, well, it was forcing people to buy these like you said, these $250 giant box sets where you only wanted one of the warbands, you didn't want the terrain, and then it was hard to get them. So I just think, and then you also had the success of Spearhead. And so I think GW just decided to, all right, all this stuff we had planned for Warcry, possibly for the next 2 years, is just going to go somewhere else. We saw they even used verbiage with that like Bramble unit for Sylvaneth, where they were like, from the former Warcry, like, and then like they use the word former when describing Warcry. And then we know that Fire Slayer unit is now going to, or at least according to the rumors, is going to just become a dwarf proper unit and not be a Warcry thing anymore. So that, I think it's 100% dead. Warcry is just going to go away. And now,
I mean, there will be community rules for it. There will be like the people who love it aren't going to let it die. But when we say it's a dead game, right? We're not saying you're not allowed to play it anymore.
Right.
We're saying GW is not supporting it anymore. They're not releasing new stuff for it. Like that's just how it goes.
And I think it's possible that these Gutter Runner, Night Runner things, or at least maybe one of them, was possibly another idea they had for Warcry that's just now not going to be a thing. And same with possibly that Cities of Sigmar, because they're taking stuff that feels less like the army proper, and that's what Warcry was, right? You were out in the woods, you were out in the cities, you were out in and so it could be we see for another little while these really oddly designed units that just become a part of an army, which is, I guess, an okay way to expand them. But so we know Eshen's getting that, but as far as Cities of Sigmar, that sounds like it's just a tip of the iceberg for them.
Hopefully,
and then
more named characters, more updates to missing units. I mean, we'll probably see a compendium or a packet or something of like the auxiliary races, call it, for Cities of Sigmar, that will get an expiration date of next year. It'll probably be that case where it's like, oh, well, all these dark elves, all these dwarves are moving to Legends summer, June of 2027. It'll be something like that. And then these new units are going to replace them in terms of role. We'll see, a big, kind of behemoth construct thing of some kind that replaces steam tanks and gyrocopters and cannons, whatever other artillery, that kind of stuff will be the cog for it. We'll see, ogres, city breaker ogres that will be your kind of your big guys. You have your knights that will be your elite infantry, that kind of stuff. You'll see a lot of that stuff just get replaced by a newer kit. Hopefully it doesn't stop there. Hope we get more. We see, I think there's another aspect to the Cities of Sigmar that we're not seeing, which is that faith, the warrior priests, and maybe even units of priest adepts, that kind of thing, because we had flagellants for a long time, but that flagellant kit, while plastic, is very old. It's not even listed under Cities of Sigmar as a possible unit. You have to go to the Old World Empire page on Games Workshop to find flagellants, even though it's an entry in that book, right? Like it is the only unit that has had a specific keyword that worked with one of the named characters, the Pontifex, Zenestra. Her only unit that synergized with her was not even listed in the store page as under that army. It is weird. And so I'm wondering if that sort of the faith side is going to come back further.
Well, yeah, and that makes it interesting when you talk about that sort of 2-player box that'll have Skaven and cities. If one of those will gain a keyword, or they'll reword that for their new battle tome. One thing we also heard was, because you talked about ogres and gargants or whatever finding their way, or something similar in cities. The ogre maw tribes themselves, a huge dump of rumors have come out. And they're oddly specific for me to question if they're inaccurate. It's not. I don't think it's just a wish list. It sounds like, for one, we heard aesthetically they will not look like the ones that support cities. They will look like their own kind of ogre. So this shows the diversity in the different humanoid types, even in the mortal realms. But it sounds like they have somewhere between 9 and 12 kits coming,
which is crazy.
They're
I mean, some of those will be replacing the current kits.
Yes, correct.
Right? So it's not just like additions to the army as 9 or 12 kits. It'll be like, well, you're getting new bulls, whatever they're called, the iron guts. You're getting new
the bulls. Yeah,
gluttons. Yeah, you get new versions of those that will replace the previous ones. And so there will probably be 4 or 5 kits that are getting retired and being replaced. There'll be a couple that are going away, and then there'll be some new stuff.
Well,
right?
And hopefully they'll handle that a little bit better. So it's like, remember with Stormcast and Skaven, some of their kits that they announced were going away on that big sheet were then replaced immediately.
Right. Just immediately.
But there was no announcement that they were replacing them. They were just like, these are going away. And people were like, what? We're losing everything. Oh, wait, they're functionally replacing them. Well, so among the things they've talked about, and I don't play Ogre Mob Tribes, but we know some people who do, and they've been an army that really hasn't had that Sigmar aesthetic update yet, short of a single hunter model. And so it was.
So we go through it. They had the 2019 Tyrant, which still looked very much like the old style.
Yep.
We had the Manslayer kind of pirate. They called Manslayers. Yeah, I think that's what. Because you had a ninja, and you had one with a rolling pin, and you had the pirate.
Oh no, those were.
Was it a Manslayer?
Those were in fantasy. It was.
Yeah. So we got an update through. It's a man-eater. Yeah, there you go. So the man-eater always had like very one-off kind of like things. They had very different aspects. We had one man-eater, like a pirate man-eater that came out in a warband for Underworlds. Looked very much like an old world ogre, though.
Yeah.
Big, brown, Fu Manchu. What's his name from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, the one with the big gnarly head? Remember that guy?
So there was a couple. You had Bald Bull.
Bald Bull is who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Bald Bull. He looked very much like Bald Bull. That's it. You had the Man Trapper, Hrothgar or Hororgoth or something like that. That had like the little Noblars with him. He had a big like crossbow with a chain trap on it. Very old world ogre. Very bottom heavy. Call it. Big head. Big hands. But then they released the Tyrant, who was a great facelift for the Tyrant that we hadn't had for a while. Still looked very old world. The Hunter, I think, was the first model that they got that was like, whoa, this is different. His head was a lot smaller. He didn't have like the big goofy like egg teeth that a lot of the ogres have. He wasn't like didn't have the mustache or anything. Like, he looked very different, kind of very, very ogre-y, right? But very, very different. Less a shoulder bulk to him, less of a belly. I don't know. He seems slimmer and more like functional hunter living in the wilds, stronger. I don't know. He looked different. And then you had the Gorgers, which, while they looked very much like the old Gorgers, very, very different still.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of see a little bit of like kind of where they're going. They're trying to make them more anatomically correct, because the old ogres are just like, how does this thing function? Its arms are too short for how big its body is. I don't know. Very weird looking.
And they didn't do enough, I think, in terms of their clothing and war gear to really separate them from orcs. They wielded like a lot of the same stuff. And so we saw with that Hunter a real change, and the Gorgers a real change aesthetically. So the rumors are, and again, these are very specific, they're going to get new Gluttons and new Iron Guts. We don't know if they'll still be called that, but we know those two troop types are being, which were their standard infantry, and then their like halberd and dual weapon, heavy weapon, I should say, infantry are getting replaced. They're supposed to get a new generic Tyrant.
Yep.
Place in the 2019 one. They're supposed to get new Mournfang equivalent or new cavalry. They're supposed to get new hunters as a unit,
which will probably be replacing the Iron Blaster unit, which were the ogres wielding Empire cannons.
Yeah, the lead belchers.
Mortars. Lead belchers, that's what they are. Yeah, lead belchers.
Because it sounds like, from a technology standpoint, they're going to move them off of the gunpowder and move them to be, well, more like that Hunter. So one of them is supposed to be a unique or a named man-eater equivalent, a unique named butcher who's going to be a war machine type.
Probably on a chariot of some kind.
Right.
Maybe
on a chariot or who knows. And then a unique female tyrant who's a monster or behemoth equivalent might be riding on something,
Sure.
but is known as like the daughter of Glob is like one of her titles. So those are very specific call outs. And then they say and more for them coming soon or coming down the road. And the ones they think they're retiring are not too surprising. It's like fine cast stuff or stuff that only ever had one keyword. So Lead Belchers, Yetis, Firebelly, Frost Sabers, Icebrow Hunter, 2019 Tyrant, and then allegedly the Great Maw Pot's going away. And so there's supposed to be some short stories and lore updates and Black Library stuff to kind of shift their lore. So people who maybe weren't around at the time might not remember how Necrons started in 40K. They came out in a White Dwarf article at the very end of 2nd edition, got their first codex in 3rd edition, and their story wasn't interesting. They were basically just like the story of Terminator, right? Like the movie, they were this technology that supplanted their forebears, and that was it. They've dramatically shifted their lore since, and it's way more interesting now, way more unique. And they're doing that, it sounds like, with Ogors. They're really shifting away from this idea of just this eternal winter storm comes with them and they come down with blizzards from the mountains. Like they want to focus more on the Maw tribes themselves. And then you were talking about another piece of terrain that they have.
Yeah. So like, if you notice, a lot of those kits that you listed were fine cast models that were from fantasy, and they were all very specifically like ice monsters, right? Like the Firebelly, I think, was originally even like a winter ogre that kept himself warm for magic, right? Like he still lived out in the winter, I believe. But like the Frost Sabers and the Yetis, which are always weird to me, like that kind of stuff being gotten away because they're retconning, like not really retconning, but dramatically changing the identity of the army, right? Like the winter kind of thing was a very old world thing, right? Like they'd come up from the mountains where the dragon ogres and stuff lived, and they fought against them, and then like had to come down off the mountains when it got too cold. The winter came with them,
right?
Or like it became winter and the ogres would come, that kind of thing. And so the new kit you were talking about that was released, I think, for Warcry. I think it was a Warcry kit. That was the Maw Pot or the Maw Pit, which was like, think about like Star Wars, the Sarlacc pit, where it was just like in the ground, and it was like an eating hole. That's all it was. It was a monster.
They
lived
gave
in the
it
ground and waited for things. Waited for things to step on it and fall in, and then it would just eat them slowly over time. It's basically that. It's an aspect of Gur. It's a maw in the ground, which they kind of worship. The hunger that the ogres have is represented by their gods and their like magic and all that. They're always eating. They're always hungry. Well, this thing is always hungry, and so like obviously sacrificing things to it, and they had a kinship with the Maw Pit. I would say that's probably just going to replace the Maw Pot. Like, I would say that's easy. That's an easy thing to guess, right?
It's not too dissimilar to when they made the shift away from like what we knew about Chaos Marauders from Warhammer Fantasy or the old world, where they were just Norskins, and what they shifted to with Dark Oath in Age of Sigmar, and it was hinted in like Godslayer and books like that, but then they really expanded on it. It's like this is what the humans are who turn to chaos. They don't even realize what they're serving or what they've just been so shunned and rejected by society. Now they've greatly expanded it. The lore is super cool. The characters, and I think with Ogres, there's a chance here for them to do that too. Like really give them a unique place in the mortal realms, and not just they're doing the same thing they were doing in fantasy. And so,
and I think they're probably keeping the kits that they can kind of adapt over to fit, right? Like the old Mournfang cavalry wield pistols. Like the Tyrant has a brace of pistols. That's probably why they're getting rid of them. It's like, we don't want to do gunpowder. Get rid of the guns. Now maybe we'll see Mournfang with like hand crossbows, like a big hand crossbow.
Yep.
I think the the big fuzzies, the Stonehorn and the other one, Thunder Tusk.
Yeah.
Those two big kits are aesthetically adaptable, right? Like they can use them in this new army without they'll stand out a little bit, right? Like the ogres on top are the old style, whatever. But the one guy's either got a chain trap and a big spear, or like he's got a crossbow and a bird.
Yep.
Like, okay, crossbows, we can work with that. It's not like he's sitting on top of the big cannon or something. Right. Like we can make this work.
Yep. And they can even paint different for the studio pages, right? So yeah.
Now, the one thing that is interesting they might be keeping is the 2 artillery kits, right? Which is scrap launcher and the super annoying like great cannon,
the chariot thing, right?
Iron blaster, maybe is that what it's called? Yeah. No news about that, whether that's going away or not. If that's kept, it's like that'll be their one holdover from fantasy, because that was a fantasy kit that pretty much killed 8th edition fantasy, right? Is that one kit?
That one
because it broke all the rules, right?
Yeah.
It was a great cannon that operated as a mobile weapon platform that just it alleviated, or it removed all the negative penalties of having a stationary cannon, because it could move. Anyway,
yeah, and it was laser accurate. Like
more stories for another time. Yeah, of old fantasy, but yeah, like I said, the kits they're keeping are probably ones that they can kind of make work. And then everything else that doesn't work, they update.
At least for now, like until they find functional. And it could even be that this named tyrant lady on a monster, if that's the case, could even make a generic version. We don't know. Right. And if that's the case, even better. But that one, it's interesting. We don't have a TBD for that. It's supposed to be before the end of 4th edition, but 4th edition is only going, I think, until summer 2027. So that's
not that far.
It's got to come soon, and that's a big release. And then we also heard more about the Cossalid holds, which are supposed to be, though that
as almost as big of an update as that ogre one is.
Yeah, and it's that one is still juggling a bit. It sounds like I don't even know. Now we know the lead time for releases. I mean, we've had people who worked for the GW studios, from that guy who does his Twitch stream about the AoS tournament results. We have that, Peachy who used to work there, and Duncan used to work, and they've talked about it. There's this like 18 to 24 month lead time from design to painting to then like hitting the shelves. And so whatever is coming for the dwarves has got to be at least in production by now. So the rumors are still that Dispossessed and Fire Slayers will become one faction, with the Fire Slayers becoming an elite component within the faction. And it's supposed to be called like Cossalid Holds. And again, they're rumored to get about 12 new kits. They think 3 to 4 of them will be specifically Fire Slayers. The rest might be the Dispossessed stuff, the like regular dwarves. And we don't have any idea what the aesthetic will be like. We've seen no leaks, no art, no nothing. But some stuff has become specific. So there's some new species, possibly like Kindledroth or of a Magma Droth. It's either there's going to be a new Magma Droth that's less static looking, or there's an entirely new species, subspecies getting a kit. And then something called a Kindledroth herd. And there's a blurry picture, I guess, that's been shown. Very blurry. Again, it's like, I think the rumor mongers are having fun with it if they do have the real thing, like they did with that Eshin thing for a while. We hear that Gotrek will officially join the faction as an actual part of the faction and not just be the standalone order mercenary for hire.
And that makes sense to me, because he's sort of straddling the line between Dispossessed and Fire Slayer. He's not a Fire Slayer, even though he's very Slayer-y, but he's still very much like classic dwarf as well. Like he's the aspect of Grugny, which is the Slayer
Grugny, and he is also
king, like
he
Slayer god. Sorry. So it's like, so it's interesting. It makes sense. They've also come out with a new compendium book, or they're coming out with from Black Library, all about Grombendel, the white dwarf.
Yep.
Who's a very similar kind of shows up leader of the dwarven people when they're in need. you know, boom, you got a named character right there that you could absolutely just roll into that army.
Yeah,
like those two could absolutely be faction leaders.
Oh yeah, and then they could just do something to make them rules wise very different, because currently their rules were very similar. But
I don't even think Gromandel has rules anymore. They kind of
legends or whatever.
He
right?
doesn't even have legends rules. They've moved on beyond that, where it's like even those rules are gone. Like I can't find them besides in an old White Dwarf article. So
well, and one thing that I think they were never satisfied with Fire Slayers was the army felt very horde-y, but it was all just like the Volkite Berserkers. You played just 120 naked dwarves running up the field, and like that was very boring. It was hard to collect. We had someone we knew in our local community who played them, and it was like the sheer cost, because it was like $60 to get 5 dudes, and you needed to run like 4 units of 20 or whatever at the time.
Whatever
it was just insane. You needed heaps of them, and so it sounds like they're going to shift away from that. Now, people wonder, like, why are they going to get rid of an AoS only kit? It's like, well, that kit's 10 years old now, so that's okay, in my opinion. And it sounds like the Slayers, again, will become more of an elite part of the army, and they will be these dispossessed that make up more of the core infantry. There's been rumors of something called a Grimnir Golem, which they're not sure if it's just a term they've seen, if it's going to be something that has to do with their priests, or if it's a war machine or terrain piece. So that one's really shaky, but the name is very specific. I mean, Grimnir Golems come up a few times. I have to imagine that means something. The new Magmadroth variant will apparently be in whatever new spearhead they get. So I don't know. That sounds super interesting. They're supposed to be, what is confirmed, I guess, is they're going to be the last book of 4th edition. We've seen now with 40K recently, they get all the codexes out now quite a ways before the edition ends. So the idea is to give people this time to play the campaign events and stuff with armies that have mature rules. So I think we'll probably see the same with AoS. Maybe that's why Sylvaneth got dropped in so fast. Get all the books out before the start of next year, so next year they can just do campaigns. And that's cool. And if so, this is supposed to be the last one. Dwarves have needed a big update. Fire Slayers are not short on characters, so that's not the issue. So it'll be.
So I will say that one of the rumors of what's happening with them is a trimming of their line. One of the things they were supposed to lose is that basic dwarf kit, the big unit, which have like the double axes or the pick and the sling shield, whatever they've got. So that kit, which is just the core dwarves, going away. But it just makes that one unit. The rumor that they were keeping was the Auric units, which are the poleaxe kind of halberd, and then the halberd with the sling on the back of it, the chain flail version, and then the guys with the magma pikes. So that's 3 units out of 2 kits right there
for the Fire Slayers. Yeah,
for the Fire Slayers, and then the heroes that they have, because they've got a ton of stuff they've kind of acquired through single book updates, and then a hero, or like Warhammer Quest will give you a guy. Here's a guy from a summer campaign. You get a hero. They've gotten lots of those. They've acquired them.
They even have the guy with like, oh no, that was Caradron's. Never mind. It's like they got the guy with like the 3-barrel puckle gun looking thing. Like, yeah.
Sorry, that's Caradron's though.
Yeah.
But a lot of those characters, kind of like how they consolidated with Stormcast, can just be whatever the generic hero that they have. They're just alternate versions of that guy, right? Like the Lord Celestant for Stormcast, there were like 5 different models that were all in different war scrolls. That's like, oh well, they're all just Lord Celestants now.
Yep.
All these different like unique models that they've released throughout the years. Oh well, they're all just Night Questers now. You know, like these 6 models are just those one. Fire Slayers have that. They've got the Grimwrath Berserker, and the Grimhold Exile, and the Doom Seeker, and like all these characters that were just like, these are just melee combatant dwarves that all have different weapons. Let's just say they're all the same guy now, with different, generic, weapons. We'll call it one profile. They all do the same thing. So if you have these models, they're not like unusable. You're just now an exile. You're just a Grimhold Exile now.
And some people might only own one version of those, but now it's like saying, okay, now you can play it no matter which one of those 5 you have.
Yeah. And so honestly, that consolidation for like that one word, like that's like 5 different hero kits being consolidated right there. There's 2 different banner bearer units for for Fire Slayers. And it's like, okay, well now whichever banner bearer you have is just now the same war scroll. You use this other guy now just as this one. The Battlesmith is now just the whatever they're called. So like, even though they're cutting kits and they're consolidating, it's like if you've got them already, you can still use them. But now you've only got 12 war scrolls instead of 20. And it's just all the same stuff.
And then that aesthetic update that Fire Slayers kind of got, again, via a Warcry warband. That unit they confirmed, or the rumor mongers confirmed, is going to just be a unit in the new Dwarf army. And I don't think it's going to be one of those capped at max 1 or
I hope so.
So it sounds like that's going to become a permanent fixture. And we really liked that aesthetic.
The aesthetic was great.
Yeah.
By the way, that unit has a Kindle Droth in it.
Yes.
A little like baby Magma Droth is a Kindle Droth. So maybe they are expanding and making bigger versions of that. I think that was a Kindle Droth pup or something.
Right.
So maybe there'll be a bigger version of that becomes like Chaos Spawn, like bigger individual models, or maybe a small unit of elite, 2 to 3 models per unit kind of thing.
There could be so many, if they're going to expand on it, which it sounds like on the Slayer side, that's where they're going to expand, is the Droths. I could see them doing if they release a new Magma Droth, which again, someone might be mistaking, they might be seeing a Kindle Droth and thinking it's that, but let's say they're doing a new Magma Droth. Again, it could make a couple of variations like the current one does, where there's different heroes on it. And then you do Kindle Droth, different size thing. What if it's like the Seraphon Dino with 2 people who accompany it? What if what if there's a version of these that are the little pup and there's a unit of them? Or, hear me out, what if there's a cavalry version where dudes ride these things?
Or it could be a beast version where there is no one riding it, and they just like they have handlers.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So and then the
dispossessed side, though, I think is interesting because we have nothing on them.
Nothing
besides a golem with an H, spelled with an H, by the way.
Right.
Golem. But we know when they do these kind of updates, they like to replace all of the old kits, right? Because they've kept a few things in Age of Sigmar from Warhammer Fantasy. Mostly the anyone that has the what's it called? Gromroll, the Gromroll armor, the big heavy armor guys, your hammers, your the grudge. Who's got the grudge torpedo? The big cannon wielder.
The Iron Drakes. Yeah.
Iron Drakes. There you go. And then the Iron Breakers. Those units are all the heavy armored dwarves that were kept. They will likely just be going back to fantasy.
Right.
Because that's where they're from. That's where they'll go back to. What is the replacement for them? What's that going to look like? An Age of Sigmarized version of them, I'm sure, but how many kits are going to be replacing those? Is it going to be like one kit that's like, here's a heavy armor melee guy, here's a heavy armor shooting guy? That's your replacement.
I think because the rumors were hinting that the whole army will become a little more elite and not so hordy or blocks of infantry. So it's possible that if they do something like that, they take this heavy armor Sigmarized version. I guess we could look a little bit at Helms of Hashut and like get an idea. Yeah, where it's this like 10-man unit that makes 2 different things, and they do that 3 or 4 times. They could replace functionally a lot of those units with your torpedoes, with your bows, with your axes. And like, I think it'll be a pretty sizable release, like maybe one we haven't seen in a little while, although the Ogre sounds like that too. So if that's true, and again, they're very specific rumors, so I see no reason for it not to be. The rest of Age of Sigmar, the last year and a half we're going to have here of this edition, is going to have quite a few chunky releases. I mean, Cities is going to have a big thing. Ogre is going to have a big thing. Dwarves is going to have a big thing. That's a lot to eat up, and they'll probably have them out before, I don't know.
And there's a handful of other armies in there that I mean, I don't know if they've gotten rumors of getting updates. I mean, Seraphon, for example, has rumors of getting a small update, right? Like, were they talking about new Temple Guard, new Dino, new something for them?
Right.
Like, where's that going to fit?
Yeah, they were talking about some of the old dinosaur kits finally getting an update and a new elite infantry to replace Temple Guard or be the new Temple Guard. So, because they're also, I think, porting as much stuff as quickly as they can back to Old World to separate the 2 games further, which I'm all for. But yeah, so I don't know, super exciting.
What other armies need to get updated? I mean, I should be keeping track. I've you lose track sometimes when you get all these.
Blades of Corn still have their update coming.
Okay, and there's no rumors about them yet. That's wild.
The Korgus Cool Ascended rumor has resurfaced.
Okay.
But all that it said is it's happening, and he's supposed to be quite a centerpiece, but all they have for timelines are like, it's not coming as soon as you would like. Well, that doesn't mean shit. Right. That could just mean someone wants it now, but we're not going to see it until like the end of the edition or something like that when they're doing a campaign thing, which there would be a perfect time to do it. Or when they launch 5th edition, if Khorne becomes the new bad guy again, there's a perfect time to do it. So that has come back into rumors that a cool Ascended model is coming. And they could put that along or opposite the guy he fought in Age of Sigmar 1 from Stormcast.
Vanda's Hammerhand.
Yeah. Right.
100%. So, I think the only other armies that we haven't really seen, besides Seraphim, Blades of Khorne, Eden Knights of Slaanesh, another army that really hasn't gotten anything since their initial release, right? I mean, we have they've got their elite infantry, right? The 2 versions of that. They've got the cavalry with the bows, and then the kind of like the halberd glaives kind of cavalry. They have that, but beyond those Heat Knights, have they got anything else?
They got Glutos, and they got the Hexessa and Dexessa, whatever, the twins. Okay. But they haven't. I don't think they've gotten their update for this edition anyway, right? Maybe they did. Maybe they got.
Pretty sure they did not. I'm pretty sure they did not.
But yeah, I think they're still waiting. They might. Who knows? But they could use.
Now we know of Sylvaneth, right? They announced that. Sons of Behemoth haven't gotten a book.
No, and
they're supposed to be getting their update with a new character.
And it sounds like, by the way, on that, we've heard rumors of them getting a Mega Gargant Matriarch, and then like a different faction from King Broad, and then they're also supposed to get some lore updates as well. So their lore is no longer just they're stupid. Their lore becomes fun. Because I guess Broad's story, I've only read some of it, but Broad's story on its own is he's like kind of this tragic hero. So I think like Ogors, they might make the Gargant's stories a lot more interesting too. So,
and with those rumors, I've actually heard people talking about them a little bit, of trying to figure out what the history of Ogors and Gargants are, and how they relate to the old world. Because old world, they were kind of dumb.
They
right?
were like, they were descended from this great race of cloud giants or whatever. Yeah. Now they're both stupid. Like, yeah.
And so what we see in Age of Sigmar though is not necessarily that same thing, right? No. Like the history of the Age of Sigmar is very much shrouded in mystery for much of it. I know in a lot of the stories they talk about finding ruins and building on top of them, and then the cities gets toppled, and then they build on top of it again, because it's for whatever reason, places that they choose to build cities tend to attract new builders, whether it's because of ley lines and convergence of magic, or it's just a good strategic spot, or not having to lay a new foundation is actually really beneficial for building a new city, because a lot of that work is done for you already. But a lot of the places they choose to build have ruins there. And a lot of the times it's from a race of large humanoids that have, either had their civilization destroyed because of chaos, or because something else has taken them. But a lot of those descriptions sound like Gargants and Ogors have built cities and civilizations in the past that have been made extinct. So no, I don't think Ogors and giants are stupid. Like they're portrayed a lot of the times. I think that's all we've had before, and that's the interpretation we have of them now. But there's nothing in the story that says that's how they had to be, or that they can't integrate into societies and make their own civilizations. I think a little bit of what we've seen with Cities of Sigmar kind of proves that, is that they're supposed to have city ogres and city giants that are mercenaries and fighters, and being a big guy in a civilization that's made for little people kind of makes you tougher, right? And so you become soldiers, and you excel at being a soldier. because you're strong. But there's nothing to say that like you couldn't have an ogre mage or an ogre, not a librarian, but like an ogre magi who's sitting in a wizard's tower, coming up with new magic.
Right.
Like you could absolutely have that. Maybe we'll see that expanded on it, and I'd be really excited to see that. I mean, current ogre and current Gargant aesthetics are very patchwork. They're very like use what you find, slap on pieces of armor from things you've eaten kind of things. And it doesn't necessarily need to stay that way. I think it'd be cool if we saw more orderly, more trained, more militant versions of these guys that are well equipped. I mean, look at the orcs in 40K. We see a lot of that where they're like, these guys are stupid. They just like to fight. They use what they find. And then you've got things like, is it the Goths who are like really heavily armored, organized military orcs? Gazgul's boys, right? They like to fight, but they like to do it smart.
Yeah, they're cunning, right? That's what they use for them, and it turns out they end up like they end up so clever that it's simple, and so the greatest strategic minds miss it. Yeah, that's kind of a neat, and I prefer that. I prefer a dangerous opponent to a stupid one, I guess. So that's neat that for both the ogres and the Gargants, they're gonna flesh them out to be far more interesting and far more integral to the mortal realms, which the lore itself is getting better. So, and then we had that rumor engine that could be either a Troggoth, a Gargant, or an ogre hand holding a runic stone. So I don't know, it could end up for Blood Bowl or something dumb like that, but who knows if that's...
Yeah, because I mean, like, if you look at that, it does look kind of like a football shape. It could absolutely just be a new Blood Bowl troll, and that's his ball he's throwing or something.
Well, one last thing we saw was for outside of the tabletop world, which for Total War Warhammer 3, because that's still getting support, even though they've announced 40K and all that stuff. It's funny, is like one past rumor kind of came true, just in a different way. So they just announced that the Tiger Warriors were going to be this expansion to Cathay, the Cathay faction in Total War Warhammer. And we had heard rumors a couple of years ago that after Cathay had come out, that's all they were going to do for the rest of the game and just be done. It was a bunch of Cathay stuff to sell it to the kind of Chinese market and whatever. But then then it didn't happen. They did these DLCs that were very good, that expanded other parts of the game and revised old factions. And so then we wondered if that was just a silly rumor to test the waters or to piss people off or whatever. And we wondered, by looking at the map, were they ever going to expand into Ind and Nippon, which were two areas that are currently still under fog of war on the map. And so they are. It's just going to be different than we thought. So they're making these Tiger Warriors, which were a part of Warhammer Fantasy lore, but they were... they served the god Kamo, and they were in the land of Ind, the Tiger Warriors of Ind. How very original that you have Tiger Warriors in India, right? And so, but they decided they're going to be just another Cathay faction, sub-faction rather. I don't think they're going to get full style DLC that we see with some of these expansions. It's going to still have the Cathay roster, but it's going to add these units for all the Cathay factions, but they will have a unique lord and unique hero. The unique lord, whose name is Bashiva, is completely made up, by the way. That's not in GW lore. They made it up for this. But they said specifically that Creative Assembly said they worked with the GW studio on this. I would guess you should expect this to come to Warhammer Old World at some point.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Also, aren't there Bengal tigers in China?
Not Bengal, but there are...
Isn't the Bengals are from? What's the Chinese tiger?
Bengals are from India and Bangladesh. Okay. The Chinese tiger is just called there's a Chinese tiger and a now, I think, extinct Burmese tiger. But but yeah, they've got them. They've got tigers in China. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
No problem then.
No
Checks
problem.
out.
Yep. So all they did is they revised the lore to say they're like loyal to Zhao Ming or whatever. And so they're just another Cathayan faction. But it does give them a new faction mechanic, some new units, and some new ways to play. And so people then suspected they're going to do the same for whatever the Nippon faction was like, and they'll do that and expand Cathay that way. We still have, of course, the End Times thing coming, but...
Empire, Marcus Wolfhart, very similar, right? Like, Well, Marcus was part of the Empire. He didn't have access to Empire units really because he was so far away from the Empire.
Yep.
But he had his own like gun carriages and hunters and all that. Similar to that, like
Right.
you know, a roster expansion, the Empire gets access to all those units, but those units don't like those units aren't good in an army from Nuln, like from
Yep.
Altdorf. You know, you can have them, but they're not good in that army.
Right.
Might be the same thing. It's like, oh, if you are Yao Ming, like, do the Tiger Warriors synergize really well with your army? No, you probably want the Jade Guardians and Jade Warriors and Lanterns and you know all that stuff that you had before. It's just you now have new stuff you can use.
Yep.
Kind of be like that.
Yeah. So it's basically like you'll get this new legendary lord and some new legendary hero that you can unlock, and then they'll have generic versions of each, some sort of spellcaster, shaman, and then these warriors. And so I think anything that's generic will be unlockable by the other Cathayan factions, but this legendary lord and whatever her unique mechanics are will be its own kind of faction. So, and apparently they're going to do this for a number of the other factions across the game. These little like, and it's $3, but it's going to be like $3.99 or something like that to get it, where you just get a new faction, some new units and whatever in a starting location on a map somewhere to just give you more to do in the game while they're working on the end times stuff. So I don't know.
Has every army in Total War gotten some kind of an overhaul update at this point?
Yeah. So the last ones remaining, I think, because Slanesh just got a great big pile of stuff. So
Bretonia?
We're down to like Bretonia and Lizardmen, like a rework for some of the Lizardmen mechanics that are still stuck in like second ed. Because High Elves even just got some stuff. So yeah, it's like they're down to just those to get a Total War 3 kind of update to them. Now they're still functionally very good, but yeah, they haven't gotten their Total War 3 update, I guess. So
vampire counts, do they get anything?
Vampire counts are going to get a pretty significant one from the sounds of it, because they've gone a really long time without an update. But they are going to also be a big part of the end time stuff because of Nagash. So
right, yeah.
So Neferata is going to have her own thing. So if you remember the end times model for her and then her story, she's going to get her own faction in the game. Vampire counts in general are going to get a massive update. And then so every faction is going to get touched between now and the end times, and then the end times is going to bring a whole bunch more. So they're really still supporting it for like another 2 years. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty great. Yeah.
That's
I still play it every now and then. It's, whatever.
Yeah. What else coming up recently or coming up soon is going to get new releases, new support? Something else?
I don't know. More Space Marine stuff. I've heard so many.
Yeah, maybe it's not Warhammer related.
I mean, there's another meal coming today.
Yeah, but outside of that, is there or something else?
Maybe. There may be.
Okay. Maybe we'll think about it for a couple of weeks and see if we can remember what that is.
Maybe some really cool new products coming for hobbyists.
Yeah.
Cool. I got the
but yeah, you did speak mention a meal. I could like an ogre. I'm always hungry. I could eat.
And if we've got the inside scoop on new products, I could go for a scoop of something.
Yeah, for sure. Let's eat.